You raised concerns with the expansion of powers of the executive. Are you concerned that your recent actions, unilaterally, had maybe have cut against that? President Obama, no. And here's why: it is not just part of my responsibility. But it is a sacred duty for me as Commander-in-Chief to protect the American people. President Obama, and that requires me to act fast, based on information I receive. If an embassy of ours or a consulate of ours is being threatened, the decisions I made were based on very concrete assessments about the possibility that Erbil might be overrun in the Kurdish region and that our consulate could be in danger. And I can't afford to wait in order to make sure that those folks are protected. But throughout this process, we've consulted closely with Congress. And the feedback I've gotten from Congress is that we're doing the right thing. Now, as we go forward as I've described to Chuck and look at a broader regional strategy. With an international coalition and partners to systematically degrade ISIL's capacity to engage in the terrible violence and disruptions that they've been engaging in, not just in Syria. Not just in Iraq, but potentially elsewhere if we don't nip this at the bud. Then those consultations with Congress for something that is longer term, I think, become more relevant. And it is my intention that Congress has to have some buy-in as representatives of the American people. And, by the way, the American people need to hear what that strategy is. But as I said to Chuck, I don't want to put the cart before the horse. and in some of the media reports the suggestion seems to have been that we're about to go full scale on an elaborate strategy for defeating ISIL. And the suggestion, I guess, has been that we'll start moving forward imminently. And somehow Congress still out of town is going to be left in the dark. That's not what's going to happen. We are going to continue to focus on protecting the American people. We're going to continue, where we can, to engage in the sort of humanitarian acts that saved so many folks who were trapped on a mountain. We are going to work politically and diplomatically with folks in the region. And we're going to cobble together the kind of coalition that we need for a long-term strategy as soon as we are able to fit together the military, political, and economic components of that strategy. There will be a military aspect to that. And it's going to be important for Congress to know what that is, in part because it may cost some money. I'll just take a couple more. Yes. Q, thank you, MR. President. Do you regret not moving on ISIS earlier? There are some reports indicating that most of the weapons, the US weapons that they have, they got it or they acquired it after the fall of Mosul. And also, the Iraqi president said today that the Iraqi forces are in no position to stand up to ISIS. What makes you think that forming a new government will change the situation? President Obama, well, once ISIL got into Mosul that posed a big problem. Because there's no doubt that they were able to capture some weapons and resources that they then used to finance additional operations. And at that stage, we immediately contacted the Iraqi government. Keep in mind we had been in communications with the Iraqi government for more. Than a year, indicating that we saw significant problems in the Sunni areas. Prime Minister Maliki was not as responsive perhaps as we would have liked. To some of the underlying political grievances that existed at the time. There is no doubt that in order for Iraq's security forces to be successful, they're going to need help. They're going to need help from us. They're going to need help from our international partners. They're going to need additional training. They're going to need additional equipment. And we are going to be prepared to offer that support. There may be a role for an international coalition providing additional air support for their operations. But the reason it's so important that an Iraqi government be in place is this is not simply a military problem. The problem we have had consistently is a Sunni population that feels alienated from Baghdad and does not feel invested in what's happening, and does not feel as if anybody is looking out for them. If we can get a government in place that provides Sunnis some hope that a national government serves their interest, if they can regain some confidence and trust that it will follow through on commitments that were made. Way back in 2006 and 2007 and 2008 and earlier about how you arrive at, for example, debothification laws and give people opportunities so they're not locked out of government positions if those things are followed through on. and we are able to combine it with a sound military strategy, then I think we can be successful. If we can't, then the idea that the United States or any outside power would perpetually defeat ISIS, I think, is unrealistic. As I've said before, I think I said in the previous press conference, our military is the best in the world. We can root ISIS on the ground and keep a lid on things temporarily. But then as soon as we leave, the same problems come back again. So we've got to make sure that Iraqis understand in the end they're going to be responsible for their own security. And part of that is going to be the capacity for them to make compromises. It also means that states in the region stop being ambivalent about these extremist groups. The truth is that we've had state actors who at times have thought that the way to advance their interests is well, financing some of these groups as proxies is not such a bad strategy. And part of our message to the entire region is this should be a wake-up call to Sunni to Shia. To everybody that a group like ISIS is beyond the pale. That they have no vision or ideology beyond violence and chaos and the slaughter of innocent people. And as a consequence, we've got to all join together even if we have differences on a range of political issues to make sure that they're rooted out. Last question. Q. Mr. President, despite all of the actions the West has taken to get Russia to pull back from Ukraine, Russia seems intent on taking one step after another convoys, transports of arms. At what point do sanctions no longer work? Would you envisage the possibility of a necessity of military action to get Russia to pull back from Ukraine? President Obama, we are not taking military action to solve the Ukrainian problem. What we're doing is to mobilize the international community to apply pressure on Russia. But I think it is very important to recognize that a military solution to this problem is not going to be forthcoming. Now, the fact that Russia has taken these actions in violation of the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the Ukrainians has resulted, I believe, in a weakening of Russia, not a strengthening of Russia. That may not be apparent immediately, but I think it will become increasingly apparent. What it's also done is isolated Russia from its trading partners, its commercial partners. International business in ways that I think are going to be very difficult to recover from. And we will continue to stand firm with our allies and partners that what is happening is wrong. That there is a solution that allows Ukraine and Russia to live peacefully. But it is not in the cards for us to see a military confrontation between Russia and the United States in this region. Keep in mind, however, that I'm about to go to a NATO conference. Ukraine is not a member of NATO, but a number of those states that are close by are. And we take our Article 5 commitments to defend each other very seriously. And that includes the smallest NATO member, as well as the largest NATO member. And so part of the reason I think this NATO meeting is going to be so important is to refocus attention on the critical function that NATO plays to make sure that every country is contributing in order to deliver on the promise of our Article 5 assurances. Part of the reason I'll be going to Estonia is to let the Estonians know that we mean what we say with respect to our treaty obligations. We don't have those treaty obligations with Ukraine. We do, however, stand shoulder to shoulder with them. And we're doing not just a lot of work diplomatically but also financially in order to make sure that they have the best chance at dealing with what is admittedly a very difficult situation. Thank you very much, everybody. Q. On immigration? President Obama, thank you, guys. Thank you. Q. Immigration. Q. Mr. President, how are external events and your executive? Decision-making going to impact your decision on immigration reform? Some people say you're going to delay this. The President, let me just say this. I've been very clear about the fact that our immigration system is broken and needs to be fixed. And my preference continues to be that Congress act. And my preference continues to be that Congress act. I don't think anybody thinks that Congress is going to act in the short term. But hope springs eternal that after the midterm elections they may act.